and welcome to Security Analysis. I am Uday Bhaskar. The focus for our discussion this week is a very important domestic security issue, if I could frame it in that manner, and that is about police reforms in India. Traditionally, India has been observing September 22nd as Police Reforms Day. And this goes back to a case filed by Mr. Prakash Singh, a former DG Police of UP, undivided UP, if I may add, in 2006. This was a PIL, a public interest case, which made a plea to the highest court that India's police needed reforms. This was in 2006. And now we are in 2021, 15 years later. In the interim, the Supreme Court had even given certain directions about how these reforms could be implemented. But the sad truth is that in 15 years, very little has happened on the ground to make that difference, which is why had police reforms in India gone through a different trajectory, a meaningful trajectory, we could have celebrated the day. Instead of which, I dare to suggest that India is observing September 22nd as a very vital opportunity for reforms that have not taken place. And as a result, the citizen of India is actually paying a very heavy price because of the lack of trust in the police and what that means for a democracy, the rule of law, integrity, professional integrity, and the whole rhythm of democracy. To understand these issues, I am very glad to introduce and welcome Mr. Yashovardhan Azad. Welcome to the show, Mr. Azad.
Thank you.
Mr. Azad has a very impressive career profile. He is from the 1976 batch of the civil services, went to the Indian Police Service. Madhya Pradesh cadre, again, the undivided state, held many important district responsibilities. He was also in the Bhopal range, if I remember right, as the IG. Subsequently, he moved to the center, where he served in the Intelligence Bureau. He also headed the SPG. And towards the end of his career, he was handpicked to be a Central Information Commissioner, CIC. So here you have a professional, not only accomplished police officer, but also spent some time in the Intelligence Bureau, and then dealt with a very vital aspect of democracy, which is the right to information. So I thought that he would be the appropriate person to walk us through. So Mr. Azad, my first question to you is, will you just tell us from 2006 to where we are now? And I've often doffed my hat to Mr. Prakash Singh for what he's done. Where are we as far as reforms are concerned? We as in Indians. Over to you, Mr. Azad.
Thank you for having me on your show. And today you're discussing something which is so critical for our democracy. You rightly given a few poses as to what has happened in these 15 years and why they haven't been implemented, the Supreme Court reforms. You see, the Supreme Court reforms and directions were basically very, very simple. They related to functional autonomy of the police, which is all over the world. First, they related to the fixity of tenure of the Director General of Police, that is the police chief, and also the operational posts. And very simply, it could be said that it was expected that people who are serving as in charge of police stations, in charge of districts, and in charge of the state, that they have a fixed tenure of 2 to 3 years. Nobody disturbs them, so that with this autonomy, they are able to work freely, understand at work, and be accountable to the public. The second aspect was to select the people from a professional group. And therefore, the Police Establishment Board was meant to decide on transfers of all the officers below the Deputy Superintendents of Police. That means at the Director General of Police level, all the transfers were to be decided. At the level of the IPS officers, the proposals were again to be formulated by the Director General of Police and the Police Establishment Board and then sent to the government. Now, two other important things were also there, and I think they are critical for any kind of a reform. That is the accountability of the police. So the police accountability comes from where? If people are allowed to question the police, if people are able to file complaints against the police, and there is a constitution of a police complaint authority in every district and also at the level of the state. And secondly, another very, very important thing was that the police direction and the oversight should be there with some eminent people. And therefore, that was the State Security Commission, in which the Home Minister would head it, the leader of opposition would be a part of that, and there would be eminent civil service professionals, as also eminent people, whether they are professors, whether they are from other walks of life. And lastly, to put the police on a more professional footing, there had to be a separation of the law and order functions from the investigation. Now, it is very, very important because you realize that the investigation issues are mounting, so many issues, whether in terms of forensics, whether in terms of manpower support, whether in terms of so many instrumentalities, which would make investigation a truly focused and a committed job. And therefore, this had to be separated from law and order, the daily bandobast and VIP security and all kinds of things. So this would give. So if you look at it in a wider perspective, these were the kind of reforms overall, which would give a police a direction and a purpose.
See, from what you have explained, and I think this is a very lucid explanation, it gives us a template, which is a very desirable template in terms of improving not only the efficiency, but also relating to those intangibles. Can a citizen, for instance, repose that trust and faith in the police, knowing fully well that the police is committed to the rule of law? This, as I said, is desirable. But the reality in India is very, very different. And I am drawing your attention to what has happened over the last 1 year, which is in recent memory. The senior most police officers in Maharashtra, for instance, have been under the scanner. Similarly, in Punjab. And we also had a deputy superintendent of police who was involved in a narcotics and a terrorism related charge. And these have all in a way undermined the credibility of the police as an institution. So with this reality, and it's not as if our political establishment does not know it, chief ministers of states have gone on record. Most recently, the former chief minister of Punjab had spoken about the security dimension that a chief minister has to be conscious of. Much the same thing could be said of other states. I mean, there is no state in India where you cannot introduce the responsibility of national security. Against this backdrop, is there any state that you can recall or maybe inform our viewers, which has actually accepted the spirit of the police reforms and made any attempt? I mean, I've occasionally read about some states, but then 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. So is there any case study that you would share with us, Azad sir?
No, unfortunately, none of the states actually followed the spirit of the Supreme Court reforms. In most of the states, the Police Act, which was enacted, was not in the spirit of these reforms. And some of the states, like even Madhya Pradesh, didn't even have a police act. They just gave executive directions, which were absolutely contrary to even what the Supreme Court desired.
A two-finger interruption. Is it right that India's police laws and act are colonial? And we do not have the equivalent of a post-1947 Azad India, which has people-friendly legislation? Ye baat sahi hai sab?
You're absolutely right, because, there was the, what we go by is the 1861 Police Act. Now, that was an all India Police Act. But, in our country, Commodore Bhaskar, one of the very important thing is that we always quote constitution, rules, laws, procedures. So the chief ministers say that after all, law and order is a state subject. So if it is a state subject, it is our right to choose the DGPs. Actually, that is just a ruse so that the DGPs remain loyal to the chief ministers. But chief ministers are quoting a precedent which is right. You know, all over the world, the police is under an elected mayor or under elected government. But the question here is, we are talking about a functional autonomy which is there all over the world and which is exactly what the Supreme Court wanted. Correct. Now, today you are forced to do an enactment in all the states in the name of state subject. But there was a Model Police Act, and I'd like to inform you, which was made by none else than the eminent Soli Sorabji. Correct. And that Soli Sorabji committee had IPS officers, IAS officers, and eminent members of the public. That was the Model Police Act of 2006, which could have been enacted by the center. But the center did not enact it. At least it could have been the UT, could have been a model for the states. So what I'm saying, again, reiterating my old point, none of the CMs and perhaps none of the government or parties are actually accepting a One Police Act, which has been under the direction of you.
You know, I want to remind you, I'm sure you know this, but I'm also saying this for the benefit of our younger viewers. There was a time in India when your own predecessors, I'm talking of IPS officers of the 1960s, perhaps a decade after independence, and this was a time when Pandit Nehru was the Prime Minister. I remember a very famous case that used to be referred to in Bombay, which perhaps was still undivided. And Mr. Morarji Desai was the Chief Minister. And he apparently had given a certain directive to the police. And the local police and the local commissioner, who was an IAS officer, came to the determination that whatever Mr. Desai was proposing as Mr. Desai, not as Chief Minister, would be detrimental to public good, law and order. And despite whatever pressures that a Chief Minister's office can bring to bear, the district officials said no, and actually sent a message saying that if you come when this particular orders are in place, we will arrest you. I'm recounting something that was told to me by very senior officers of the civil service and the IPS who were bemoaning the fact that the constitution and the law allows officials to act with a certain degree of commitment to the spirit of the constitution and the letter of the law. So that has not changed. What has changed is the HR, the human resource at the political level, and maybe the human resolve, if I could put it that way, at the professional level. I mean, you've been a senior police officer. So we know the problem. Every state in India has, I would say, its own experience of the so-called linkages between the chief minister, the chief minister's office, and the rest of the hierarchy. What is the way ahead? What can a citizen do? What would you recommend as Mr. Azad, who's been information commissioner, who's been IB, and who's been IPS at district level? Azad sir?
Well, let me say at the outset that I am indeed positive and hopeful because things are changing on ground. First thing, look at some of the legislators, our members of parliament, who have talked about parliamentary oversight over the intelligence agencies. They've talked about surveillance reforms. Now, if indeed is coming from the public representatives, it's a very healthy sign. I think it's a kind of a bugle for reform, which has already been sounded. And if it comes from the public representatives, nothing like it. Secondly, I think it is incumbent upon the police leadership to sort of carry on this reform process, because reform is not only about autonomy. Reform is not only about tenures. Reform is not only about investigation and complaints. Reform is about processes. Mm-hmm. Speeding up, making it more efficient. And I think the most important in this digital world is of having a wider interface. Today, the police has to interact with the corporate India. on issues like artificial intelligence. It has to interact with the IT professors on accidents, road jams and other things. So there is a wider interface which is required, which can be done by the police leadership. But I would also say that there are many things which the police chiefs have to stamp out. You can't use UAPA against common citizens. You can't use sedition and these useless laws, which I think it should be done away with. That is very, very important. And I would also say you have to get rid of the lawless elements and the deadwood within your service. So what I'm saying is there are many things you can do. And why I'm saying I'm hopeful is there are only very, very good trends which I see among some of the youngsters who are using the computers and the digital age to such perfection that there is a wider and wider public support. I mean, there are people who are protesting against an SP's transfer way in Northeast and also in the South. Now that gives me a lot of hope. Let me say that, our democracy still needs to be evolved. In a country like States or Britain, you don't have the Sifarish at Thana level. Nobody goes because it's accepted. You and I know how tough the immigration is at the American airports, and sometimes they misbehave, but nobody says anything to them because it's a kind of functional autonomy they exercise. So we will reach there, but maybe it takes about 40 to 50 years. But within the time, there have to be internal reforms which have to be pressed upon by the police chiefs.
Azad Saab, let me take the liberty of being devil's advocate. You spoke about a democracy evolving. Now, very soon we are going to be at India at 75. This is Prime Minister Modi's flagship event, August 2022. And I'm a security analyst. And I say this with sadness that over the last few decades, I would say from the Narasimha Rao period onwards, it's not as if this has happened recently. But I'm taking the liberty of saying to you, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there has been a steady deterioration of the internal security fabric of India. And there are many reasons. I'm not holding just the police culpable for this. But I recall talking to your colleagues over the years, and I remember very committed, very, very capable police officers at younger level. Occasionally, I would go to your academy in Hyderabad to have an interaction with them. And one would make the motherhood apple pie kind of, observations about what internal security in India requires and the role of the police. And later in the evening over a drink, some of them would tell me कि Commodore साहब आपने जो भी कहा वो बिल्कुल सही है, पर मैं आपको ये बताना चाहता हूँ कि on the ground हकीकत कुछ और है. Police officers who stand up, in the first cycle, you will be transferred. कई बार आपके ट्रांसफर हो जाते हैं. In the second cycle, इतने ट्रांसफर हो जाते हैं कि the cutlery and crockery break. And the third one is the saddest thing. उन्होंने कहा कि साहब आप और भी commitment to constitution, commitment to principles, सिद्धांतों के ऊपर आप जाएंगे, तो marriages break up. And this is a very sad kind of, I would say, statement. And of course, this is some years ago. So my own sort of feeling is कि आपने bugle call की बात की. अगर शंख बजाना है, नागरिक का क्या भूमिका है? आपने कहा 2006 में सोली सोराबजी साहब का वो जो मॉडल एक्ट है, वो कहीं नहीं बढ़ी आगे, वहीं के वहीं है, स्टासिस है. Then you spoke about the fact that प्रकाश सिंह साहब का रिफॉर्म्स का केस सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इसकी सुनवाई की 2006 में. तो आपसे मैं यही जानना चाहता हूं कि अगर आप नागरिक की बात करें, क्योंकि हर एक नागरिक चिंतित है, चाहे वो shall we say socially and socio-economically deprived, vulnerable cross section to the upper end, there are different levels of vulnerability and anxiety apropos the police. So आपका सुझाव क्या है? What would you recommend with all your experience कि भाई आगे हम क्या कर सकते हैं इंडिया at 75 के लिए? कौन सा शंख बजाना है? आजाद साहब.
देखिए, जिस देश की राजनीति गांव के स्तर पर तहसील, थाना और कचहरी के आसपास इर्द गिर्द घूमती रहती है, उस देश में ये आप आशा नहीं कर सकते हैं कि जो व्यवस्था है वो किसी तरह राजनीतिक इससे अछूती रहेगी। और इसलिए सबसे बड़ी समस्या जो आपने सही जिसका चित्रण किया है कि वो डिस्ट्रिक्ट के लेवल पे तमाम जिस तरह के राजनीतिक प्रभाव पड़ता है एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन पे, उससे अधिकारी जरूर विचलित हो जाता है, इसमें कोई शक नहीं। लेकिन मैं ये भी कहना चाहता हूँ कि देखिए, हमारे देश में हर विभाग में 25 से 30% ही ऐसे लोग होते हैं जो बिल्कुल ही ब्रिलियंट हैं, आउटस्टैंडिंग हैं, टफ हैं और जो अपने तरीके से रिफॉर्म्स बराबर लाते रहते हैं। 70% ऐसे हैं जो बोझ हैं, या तो वो इतना ज्यादा काम करते हैं 12 घंटे की, उसके बाद इतनी फाइलें हो जाती हैं जिसका कोई नतीजा नहीं निकलता, और कुछ में वो लीडरशिप भी नहीं है, ना वो पोटेंशियल है कि वो उसमें कुछ भी कर सके। आज के परिप्रेक्ष्य में ये आवश्यक है कि हर नागरिक ये अपना कर्तव्य समझे कि उसके पैसे से जो पुलिस चलती है उसका प्रयोग किस प्रकार शासन करे या राज करे, इस पे उसका हक होना चाहिए। देखिए, आज राइट टू इंफॉर्मेशन एक सबसे बड़ा पावरफुल लेजिस्लेशन है जो 2005 में आया, और मैंने ये देखा है कि 10 रुपए की एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म में आप शासन से, सरकार से सारी चीजें पूछ सकते हैं। और मैंने देखा, चूंकि मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ होम अफेयर्स मेरे अंडर में था एज सेंट्रल इंफॉर्मेशन कमिश्नर, सारी जानकारी जो वो पूछते थे वो इतनी सटीक जानकारी मांगते थे और उसका प्रभाव पड़ता था। और मैंने देखा उसमें सबसे ज्यादा जवाब दिल्ली पुलिस के आते थे, केसेस के बारे में, मर्ग के बारे में, सुसाइड केसेस के बारे में, लूट के बारे में। ये एक तरीका है। दूसरी चीज जो मैं आशा करता हूं कि हमारे थिंक टैंक्स, आपके ऐसे बुद्धिजीवी, एनजीओज, सिविल सोसाइटी, प्रोफेसर्स, यूनिवर्सिटीज, ये सभी, हम सभी स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं। कॉर्पोरेट इंडिया अच्छी पुलिसिंग के सभी भागीदार हैं और इसलिए आवश्यक है कि ये पुलिस की तरफ से आवाज उठाएं। आज बल्कि मैं ये कहना चाहता हूं, मजाक तो ये है कि पुलिस भी अपने आप को सुधारना चाहती है, लेकिन सवाल ये है क्या हम सुधरने देंगे? देखिए, और भी चीजें हो रही है। रिक्रूटमेंट काफी अच्छा हो रहा है। रिक्रूटमेंट के जो नए पायदान बनाए गए हैं, जो आयाम स्थापित किए गए हैं, उससे काफी अच्छी भर्ती हो रही। तो मैं ये सोच समझ रहा हूं कि ये सब जो हैं संकेत करते हैं और they are indicators that there is going to be a police reform which should come soon.
I'm so glad to hear you say this, Mr. Azad, because recruitment is something which is really, I think, at the root of the efficiency of the organization anywhere, whether it's the police, the military, the civil services, you name it, or even in the private sector. And I'm only going to make a statement and I will not seek an answer or a response from you because, again, it is something which is sad. I do occasionally visit police stations as part of my own work, the review of internal security. I did this more actively after the Mumbai attack of 2008, 26/11. In those years, when I used to visit the police stations, both, in coastal India, as also sometimes in North India. So here you met the SHO, say Delhi and its surroundings. If you went south, you met a circle inspector. And by and large, the observation was the same. कि साहब भर्ती के लिए पैसे लेके लोग भर्ती होते हैं, पैसे देके, that they pay money to get into the police, which has now become par for the course. And this is the question one SHO posed me in a very cogent and in a very sharp way. He said, कि साहब, this particular so-and-so, whoever it is, has joined after paying maybe ₹1 lakh. How do you expect him to think of constitution and rule of law? वो पैसे तो वापस देने हैं जिससे भी लिया होगा. So this is a reality. I hope it changes. I'm taking you at your word, but let me shift gears. We talk about democracy, the state, the information access through RTI and so on, which is very important. But today, there is also this anxiety that all democracies are becoming more and more restrictive in terms of how they use their laws and also the surveillance. I mean, Pegasus is a good example. So do you feel that today the mahal, the ecosystem, whether it is the United States of America where terror is a big anxiety, now after Afghanistan, everyone says terror has gone up for a variety of reasons. How do citizens navigate, when we talk about the technological impact on state and on society. Which are the areas that young India, because much of our audience is really the younger demography, those who are in their 20s and who have many, hopefully, decades ahead of them. Both of us are in a situation, may I take the liberty of saying this, that you and I have more yesterdays than tomorrows. But there are many in this audience today who have tomorrows. So, unke liye, what is the way ahead, Azad?
You know, I'm so glad that you have raised such a critical question and a relevant question, which is facing not only our country, but the entire world. I would say democracies. It's a very serious question. It's a question of state security versus, private security. That means privacy is something which is so sacrosanct, so sacrosanct. And I remember, it was, I think, Pitt who had described it beautifully. And when he says, privacy and freedom means that a poor man can live in his cottage. His walls may be broken. Rains might come in. Doors might be broken. But not even the King of England can enter his domain, which is his own abode. So that is the sacrosanct kind of fear which is attached to.
You have a great memory. Let me commend you.
Thank you. And in India, for example, the other day we were on a channel on Pegasus. And when Pegasus strikes, it strikes like a lightning and it doesn't even leave a trace. So, and in India, unfortunately, the interception does not cover the whole ambit of things, your photographs, your videos, etc. Interception is only a conversation. So, today in India, the youngsters have to see how much they are going to hold out to save their privacy. For example, the privacy bill. Yeah. The privacy bill has not still been enacted. So if you are intercepted eagerly, what recourse do you have? Now, these are the kind of questions the youngsters have to raise. They can raise through media, social media, RTI, and so many other places. People have filed PILs about this. But if you don't fight for your freedom, you will get crushed. And this is not only here. Look at Snowden. Look at all over the world. The metadata, and you are very familiar with, the kind of metadata which is collected by the agencies all over the world is phenomenal. Today, there has to be some rule. And that's why I talked about the surveillance reforms. I talked about the oversight of the intelligence agencies. This is a time when I said people and the youngsters have to apply their mind and say, yes, we are the stakeholders in the system, and therefore we are going to fight for it. That is the only way we go ahead.
Mr. Azad, I can't thank you, enough to underline this point. You said you're an optimist. And I want to share your optimism to say that at the end of the day, a democracy is really about what the citizens accept and what the citizens want to make of it to improve it. And I think you have identified many, I would say, areas, many bullets. And I do hope that the 2006 Soli Sorabji Act is really revived in Parliament, hopefully by young parliamentarians and state assemblies. I've often said that they have a great responsibility, which is not acknowledged, that they also can contribute to the public discourse in India. And hopefully many of the things that you have identified can be flagged. So on that note, I want to thank you, and I hope that we'd be able to invite you again very soon. And let's see if Young India can make the difference in either pushing the Prakash Singh PIL or the Soli Sorabji Act in Parliament, and then we'll get you back again. So thank you very much. And thank you for watching Security Analysis. We'll be back again with another subject. Jai Hind.